Hey everybody, welcome. In this lesson, we are going to be working on how to take a sketch and turn it into a vector image. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to create a new file. We're going to just use a standard letter size here in the beginning. I'm going to do a quick reset of my workspace. I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials. That's going to give me a fresh palette to work with. I'll open up my Layers panel and I'll type the word Reference. And this is going to be our reference layer. So I'm going to go ahead and take my file window and go to Place. Navigate to this sketch of a lemon that I have. We're going to play a little bit with this sketch. So I'm going to move this into the center of my screen. This is going to act essentially like our template as we go today. To create a template, I double click, not on the word, but in the empty space of the layer. That's going to open up our reference layer. Here we can kind of dim this image a little bit. And we can set this to lock or to template even if we wish, and hit OK. If you want to re-access that, you just double click again, put a couple of percentages in, and that's just going to dim it a little bit and lock it down. I'm going to create a couple new layers. The first new layer I'm going to call Line Art, and hit OK. My line art layer is just going to be that. I'm going to go through with my pen tool and create some really nice lines. Let me open up a couple of my windows that I'm going to be using. I'm going to go to my Properties tool, and I'm going to continue to kind of draw this out. Using techniques we've learned from other videos, just kind of drawing out our tool. In this case, I do not need a fill. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to focus mainly on the stroke. I'm going to open my stroke a little bit, and because this is a cartoon, I'm going to hit on stroke and make it a rounded cap. That's going to give me a really nice option. Go ahead and hit the A key just to kind of adjust my handle as I go. P key to get back on the pen tool and continue to draw. To get started, we don't have to be perfect here, but we're going to go ahead and get as close to possible as we can. And we're going to create a few of these curves, just kind of tracing the contour of our lemon. There we go. Great. Then on this one, we will just hold the Alt key and pull up that kind of nub at the end. And then with those handles, still with the Alt key held down, we'll get some nice work there. I also want to add this little chin aspect. For that, I'm going to go and create the chin. I found I'm not too good with this shape on the pen tool. So let's try a different tool. I'm going to hit N on my keyboard. I'm going to go to the pencil tool. I'm going to double click the pencil tool and open up the smoothness. And I'm going to go now and kind of sketch over that shape. Sure enough, it gives me a pretty nice result. So I can now grab this, adjust it to my heart's desired. That looks pretty good. Don't worry too much about the overlapping lines. We're going to fix those in post, as they say. But to get started, there we go. So we have some really nice line layers. And we're going to continue to do that with the rest of the elements here. I'm going to go up to the top, get my pen tool, and continue to kind of drag and drop these elements. We'll close this shape. Hold that Alt key. While the Alt key is still held down, just nudge this to give it a little more asymmetry, as they would say. Awesome. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and draw kind of a circle here. We're going to lower this stroke quite a bit and pull it into perspective mode. Kind of angle it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And this is a reference template. This isn't anything that is, set in stone. I'm going to use the pencil tool again. If you draw within the path, you're going to see it actually connects it to that pencil tool, which is rather nice. If you start in the path and draw, you're going to have a pretty nice look there. It takes that away a little bit, so just be careful on that, and we'll close that up. It's really up to you how you want to do this. I think this is looking pretty good, though. We'll kind of intersect those paths a little bit. I can still get my pen tool, everybody, and continue to kind of draw a new stroke if I click away. And kind of draw within that pre-existing line. You can have some fun with this. Hit escape there. As long as they kind of overlap, you're going to be in a good place. Finally, we have a simple stroke that goes from A to B. Hit escape. Go to my stroke panel, and I'm going to just bump the thickness of that up just a little bit. Make sure I'm still on rounded edges. This is looking rather nice. So in a matter of a couple seconds, we have a nice look. The next step I'm going to do, I always like to run a quick smooth tool on things. So object path smooth. I'm going to that's just going to help some of the organic feel to this lemon. That's looking great. I'm also going to use my width tool. So I'm going to hit Shift W, and that's going to open my width tool. All that does is allow you to kind of create different line width. You can click anywhere on your path and make this skinnier or bigger just to get a little bit more dimension out of some of these areas. Shift W, this works for strokes, not shapes. You don't want to go too wild with it. I like that little nub that it created. And we'll create our smiley face. Can't forget about that. Hold that Alt key. While the Alt key's held down, just kind of playing with those Beziers, getting them into place. Shift W gets me that width tool, and I can actually use that little happy accident just to get me a little more dynamic smile than my original sketch. This is looking really great. Now, these are all my line layers. So the next real kind of step for me is to use my shape builder tool, which is Shift M, and kind of start connecting the dots, so to speak. So to do that, I'm going to just highlight all of my lines, and we'll start down here at the bottom. With the shape builder, we can add to shapes, but we can also subtract shapes. So if you click on the stroke, it will actually take that part of the stroke away, which is a really nice feature. We can go and kind of start detaching these little areas. You know, this is looking really, really nice here. Things are looking good. Great. I may want to go in here and just nudge this stroke just a little bit in, as you can see, just to kind of hide it there and, you know, make it connect just a little nicer to that chin. I dig it. And there you are. All right, we have some great line quality. I want to do one more piece of line quality. So Shift W, I forgot to do that up here. I just want to kind of thicken the bottom part of the stroke on the leaf and thin it out on the top just to get me a little more dimension and line quality happening. Maybe on the stem as well. Why not? We're already in here. Let's make it look fun and exciting. We'll pull that up, and that just gives us a little more visual weight, just a small little touch that we can kind of work with. All right, now that we have this ready to go, we can go ahead back to our line art layer, and you can see we have line art. We'll get the eyes and everything in a little bit, but now we can kind of continue on to different colors. This is actually a really easy method. I'm going to go ahead and create a layer. I'm going to call this layer color, but I'm going to drag that layer underneath the line art. I'm going to grab everything in my line art layer. So I'm going to highlight everything, and I'm going to hit Control C to copy, and then Control B to paste in back. So you can also go to Edit, Paste in Back, Control or Command B. This little square means I have something loaded on my clipboard. I'm going to drag that to the color layer, and that's going to give me, if I hide the line art, that's going to give me these shapes. Now, why is this important? Well, now we can go through and select those original shapes and start filling them with color. So if we swap the stroke for the fill, it's going to create this nice shape. But you'll see here, the chin is actually not included. Well, that's easy. We have the shape builder tool. We can go ahead when we create the fill between these two shapes. We'll grab them on that layer. Make sure you lock your line art layer. It's just going to make it a little easier. And we have these two shapes selected. Get that shape builder tool and just pull in and drag. There you are. Now it looks like you're losing the lines. Remember, we have them on a separate layer. I'm going to open my swatches. So I'm going to go to my window, swatches, and that's going to open up some fun swatches for me. We're going to keep it pretty basic. Once we have the shape built, there we go. I can go ahead and select that shape and create that fill and start creating. Now, we don't need things like the smile, so to speak, in this particular one. I'm not too concerned that that smile is kept on there, so I can actually turn that off. We can just see what's in the middle. But you can see overall, it keeps those shapes rather nicely. My line art is on one and my shapes are on the other. So I can continue to go forward here. Same thing, we can continue to make our shapes with the shape builder tool just to kind of isolate them. This was one shape, so we're pretty good in that. There we go. Remember, this was a stroke, and we're not too worried about that. But if we go up now to the top, we can go ahead and select things like brown, and maybe for the circle at the very top, we can do like a light brown. That looks really nice. We can do like a green here. That looks good too. And remember, turn on that background layer and you can kind of see your results at work. So a really quick colorization technique ready to go. Now I have my color layer. Now I have my line art layer. Let's go ahead and push this a little further. So let's go ahead and create one more layer, and we're going to call this features. Put that on the very top, and we're going to draw out these eyes. So these eyes couldn't be simpler. Obviously, we're going to go with the color other than green, but why not? We'll start with green, and then we'll just do a whole switcheroo as we go. I'm going to go ahead and get the ellipse tool, hold Shift and Option or Alt, kind of push that in. There we go. Hold Alt, pull that down. Shift that downward. Highlight, double click, make that white. Move this back on. And the great thing about these eyes is they're roughly the same shape. I can just grab them, hold Alt, and translate them over, and we're good to go. We'll touch upon, we don't really have to do this, but we could touch upon these little marks later. But for now, why don't we just make them kind of squished. There we go, and we'll do the same here. This looks like it's rotated. And we'll just make those kind of a lighter yellow. That should look really well on our color. Yeah, just a little nicer. All right, now we have a nice look. And all of this is still editable. The great part about this is if you're not really digging, for instance, the chin work or the line work here, you can go in with your direct selection tool and you could just adjust. We could even go in with Shift W still, because this is still a line, and just thicken that line a little bit for that chin. That looks a lot better. And we'll pull this out as well. Just taper it just slightly. Perfect. Great. All right. Now, what else can we do with this? Well, the cool part about creating a vector sketch is we have the ability to continue to kind of add little features. So, for instance, if I want to work in my color layer, I can do a lot of really fun stuff. One of the things I can do is start adding shadow. I want you to watch here. I'm going to just click in this color layer. And actually, I'll use my pencil tool on this one. It may be a little easier. So I'm going to have that layer selected. I'm going to get my pencil tool. I'm going to draw kind of this random shape. Doesn't look like much. I'm going to fill this shape with a dark color. Maybe it's a highlight because it's that side. Awesome. And I'll get this tool. And again, it looks pretty gross. You may be looking at this going, what in the world is he trying to do? But it will all make sense in just a second. And we're just moving our anchor points. You can see we're trying to make a highlight. Obviously, there's this big old blob at the back of our shape. So that's something we need to kind of deal with in a few seconds. But that is what our shape builder tool is for. So if I hold the Alt or Option key, I can actually delete that and create a pretty fun little highlight on my area, which is really nice. So another cool technique that you can use is you can use things like the Blob Brush. When you select your element and you go to your brush tool, so B for brush, in the brush tool, if you hold down that, you're going to find the Blob Brush tool. If you select your Blob Brush, it works like a Photoshop brush. Now, the real cool part about this, and let me open up my advanced toolbar for you all. So advanced toolbar. I'm going to take this toolbar and I'm going to change my paint mode. I'm going to make this a little darker. I'm going to click and we're going to just make sure that we highlight that shape in the color mode. There we go. Go to paint mode. You want this kind of box around it and you can change your color. And we're going to darken it and we're going to paint inside. This is really wild. I can now just draw and look, messy drawing, right? But it's going to paint inside of that element. I can do the same thing here with the leaf. Once I have the leaf activated, and sometimes you have to click off and then click back on, I'm going to go here and we're going to darken this a little bit, go for our blob brush, really nicely paint that. Now, if I double click on my blob brush, I have mine set to completely smooth because I have an unsteady hand. You can kind of set yours up the way you want, but it's a really great technique. And you can continue to paint with this. For instance, if we wanted to kind of darken this a little bit more and maybe add that center line, it's painting inside, which is really nice. The other thing you can do is draw behind. So you can actually draw behind your object as well. Go ahead and play with all these different settings. You're going to find that they're actually really fun to kind of mess around with and play with and do all sorts of fun stuff with. That is looking pretty good. I actually think I want to highlight this one more time and see if I can paint inside. Yeah, just kind of connect those. Maybe add a little contour. The sleeve looks round this way. I love it that that stroke kind of conceals that. I don't like that one the best. We can change the properties of these in our brush palette. If you want to try like a different brush and go into like an oval brush, for instance, you can kind of play with that oval brush. If you have any sort of tablet, you could play with that tablet. It's really up to you. We're just kind of connecting these shapes, having some fun with it. And that's B on your keyboard. That's the Blob Brush. Really, really cool. Awesome. All right. Next step for me is to continue to add some fun layers. Let's do another layer and we'll call this prop. And we're going to make a little pun here. So I'm going to get our rounded rectangle tool and I'm going to draw out a rectangle. I'm going to lock all my layers. We're going to make that stroke black, go to properties, up that stroke just a bit. That's looking pretty cool. And we'll fill this stroke with white. Very nice. The next step is I'm going to draw a solid black handle using the techniques we've used from other videos. This handle is going to be completely black, so we'll make it that way. I don't think we really need a stroke on this. I'm going to just kind of center this. You'll see what we'll do in a second here. And we'll draw another one kind of to make the center handle. Love the shape tools. Can't see what I'm doing. Let me double click and change that to, it doesn't really matter the color really, green. We're going to use it as a cookie cutter. And you probably guessed we're making a little briefcase. So now I can go to that good old Pathfinder tool and we can do a trim, which will then, the A key, that will allow me to take some of this out. And going to my layers, I can move that handle beneath that. And now I have a pretty nice looking kind of briefcase, which is kind of fun. All right, so we have a little briefcase here. I'm going to go ahead and go to my regular rectangle tool. And in the middle of the briefcase, draw a rectangle vertically. Great. And we'll make this rectangle red. At this stage, I think I'm going to copy, Control-C and Control-F, and then we're going to rotate to make a little plus sign. Let's merge those layers, make them look nice. And now we have our little visual pun. We have a lemonade. Get it? all that for this payoff. So we have a lemonade. Let's go ahead. I'm proud of myself for that. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of the blob brush painting as well. So we'll go to our blob brush here at the top, and we will select, oh, we don't want to select that yet. We want to change our brush mode so we get this little dotted line. Now we can change our color, and we'll select kind of like a gray. I will use my bracket keys. I may need a lighter gray than this. Let me switch that real quick. There we go. Awesome. And I'm going to go to my properties. I'm not a huge fan of this oval brush. Let me go back to my basic kind of brushes here and use my bracket key and just kind of paint over it until I get what I like. It will add to it, which is really nice. That looks really good and dimensional. I'm digging that. And then maybe a little highlight on that handle. We'll do the same thing with the handle. We will get our blob brush. Make sure all of this is activated. If you need to activate your blob brush, you just want to click away, get that blob brush, and we have a nice fill here. And we're going to fill in that shape. So let me make sure I'm on the right layer here. All right, so we're going to take this little handle and play with that just a little bit. Maybe adjust the colors just to be a little more grayish, kind of just to make it pop a little bit. I like that. There we go. All right, and I'm going to take this whole layer and just nudge it over just a little bit. And now I have my little visual pun. And let's say I want to make a sticker with this. Well, I can completely do that. I can go ahead and I can take the entire object now, and I'm going to unlock some of the layers here. But what I like to do is select just the color layer, and we'll select the prop layer as well. And I like to put them on their own stage. I'm going to copy those to the very bottom, and we're going to call this background. And we're going to start copying these over. I start by hitting Control-C, Control-B, drag the little arrow. All that did was create kind of this segment in the background. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the prop. I'm going to grab everything, Control-C, Control-B, and drag that as well. So just to give you an idea of what we made is this. I'm going to grab everything now, and I'm going to just fill this with a color. There'll be some areas that are a little wonky. Do not worry about those. We can just actually go through and delete some of those shaded areas. We can get rid of things like the stroke on some of these shapes if we really wanted to. My favorite way to do this is grab everything and hit the merge tool. Sometimes, again, if you use these underpaintings, you can get some really wonky results. Just going through and highlighting some of those underpaintings. We had a little one here, because that's really just a mask. Grab those and hit merge. We had one more here I forgot to take out. Perfect. I think that should be all of them. Yep, that looks pretty good. And now we can turn this stuff back on. And I can take this backdrop and actually expand it a little bit. So I'm going to go to Path, and I'm going to select that layer and do a path offset. And you can make this as big as small as you want. We'll just keep it 10 just so you can kind of see what we're doing. It's kind of hard to see at the moment, but if we put a different color in there, it may just be a little easier for us to see. Let me double click and just show you maybe with the green. And now we have a fun little sticker outline. So there you have it. We went from a sketch to a really fun vector in a matter of minutes. Check that out. Again, a really clean vector. This could be a sticker, a shirt, really anything. This is a good technique you can use for all different methodology. Go and have some fun. Maybe a little side challenge for y'all is play a little bit with pattern fills. See what you can do and see what you can add. All right, everybody, there we have it. We have a visual pun sticker. This is our lemonade. I can't wait to see what you all come up with and create. Go ahead, play around with these tools, and I will see you in the next video.